everyone. You're probably wondering, where did she go? I actually went for the first time out of the United States. I finally got the chance to go and visit another country, and I went to go visit a friend who is currently attending the University of Glasgow in the UK, so in Scotland. And I went to Glasgow and Edinburgh, and I'm really, really happy. I just got back Wednesday. It was about a little over a week. It's about a week of me being there, so I'm just now getting over being jet lagged because it's Saturday, and I'm starting to get back in my routine. So I wanted to upload this video and share with you a walkthrough kind of rundown of what I did while I was there, being that I am a budget traveler and I did have assistance going on this trip because, as many of you know, I do have like medical issues as far as my spine, right? And it was just awesome because, I mean, think about it. About 6 or 7 months ago, I was having my second spinal fusion surgery, my third back surgery overall in my life as a scoliosis patient. And this time last year, I only got 4 to 6 hours out of my day, every day, where I could dependably walk and things like that, function. So this trip marked quite an accomplishment for me personally, and it was really wonderful to be able to go and visit with somebody that I knew from undergraduate studies, who is also like a financially must be required kind of student, so gets my situation, is now getting to study at the University of Glasgow. So let's begin, shall we? Being that I am living in Las Vegas, of course, I was leaving from McCarran International Airport, and I was going to be using one backpack, also known as quote-unquote the Rick Steves method of traveling. First of all, because I have spinal issues, like I've said before, and have to pack as light as possible, but also because I really didn't want to deal with having to do overhead. So I measured my backpack ahead of time, and it went ahead and fit on both my Alaska Air flights and my Iceland Air flights, which ended up being fantastic and really easy for me to manage, especially going through customs. It's just, it's like not as much of a headache. It's fantastic. I can't even words, okay? It's funny because you're there and you watch everybody else with all of their luggage and you just kind of are like, wow, I'm glad I didn't bring that much. So yeah, the Rick Steves method, as it is called, thank you Rick Steves, is a great way to approach international traveling, and I'm glad that I stuck to it. I had been practicing it domestically twice last year, and I feel like now I've finally perfected it. So I was leaving to go to McCarran. I got to the parking garage. As you can see, we have these lovely cards and card suits here in Las Vegas to represent the different levels of the parking garage. And I was waiting, amongst the slot machines and typical, very Vegas things, and waiting for my flight to arrive so I could start boarding Alaska Air from Las Vegas to SeaTac. So that's Seattle Tacoma, for those of you who don't know. And my stopover, well, actually it wasn't a stopover. I wish it could have been, but I just didn't quite have enough money. Was my layover was in Reykjavik at the Keflavik airport. And it was really interesting inside. It was extremely nice facilities, although it was a bit small, I think, for the amount of people, but they managed beautifully as far as the lines or the queues and the kind of crowd, not even crowd control, but just, how crowded it can be sometimes at different gates in an airport, given that, again, it is a smaller airport. And it's really cool because you come out and I got off of my Iceland Air flight, and you're on the tarmac. So you go down the stairs and you're like out getting the wind in your face in Iceland for a cool minute, which was great and very refreshing after coming from Vegas and being in the desert where it's hot. And so I went there, and then on my last leg from Reykjavik to Glasgow, I had included in my travel, my tickets basically, to go ahead and get one of their sandwiches. Yeah, their pretzel triangle on Iceland Air is freaking delicious. And by the way, I got a 7-Up, and a lot of the drinks, not all of the drinks, but quite a few of the drinks are complimentary. You don't have to pay for them. So that was cool. The other crazy thing that happened to and from on my longest leg of my journey, so from Seattle, Tacoma to Reykjavik and Reykjavik to Seattle, Tacoma, they ended up having 2 flights to Seattle, leaving around the same time, and both times I was put on the flight that had less people. So almost everybody had all 3 seats to themselves, and I could actually lay down in economy class with like 3 pillows and a blanket, which was super fortuitous, and I dare say a miracle both times. Don't go expecting that to happen, but just know that that happened for me to and from on my longest leg of my journey across Canada and, across Greenland, which is really part of Denmark. So that was really neat. I arrived in Glasgow, and the weather couldn't be any more different from where I came from, right? The desert. It's all like drizzly and gloomy and wonderful. And my friend who I meet up with, we greet each other at the airport. We just haven't seen each other in a while. Super happy. And we take a taxi back to their flat, and I put my stuff there because I was staying with them the entire week. And then we went to the Tall Ship, which was within walking distance from where they live, which is this really great maritime museum that is an open boat. It's free of charge to go to, and I highly recommend going and checking it out. There's been a lot of love poured into restoring this ship, and it's wonderful. It's extremely beautiful and very informative. And right next to it, literally right next to it, is another free museum, and it's the Museum of Transport, which is where all these fine motorbikes and scooters are from, along with, some pretty interesting kind of historical reconstructed spaces to look like streets where, there's different places and shops that you can go in and out of that are also exhibits. And they have rail cars, they have double-decker buses, they have airplanes, they have trains, they have everything. It is really, truly a museum of transport. I highly recommend going in there. It was very cool. Like, if you're interested in that, it's super awesome. You should totally go in there. And then my friend also took me to the University of Glasgow campus, of course, because that's where they're studying. And I was just stunned by all the beautiful neo-Gothic architecture. It's just wow, is all I can say. And later on in the trip, we went into the chapel there and spent some time there. They have beautiful grounds, and hilariously enough, I actually was walking along, and then this happened. It's so weird. There were bagpipes everywhere outside the Kelvin Grove Museum. And apparently it was some kind of workers celebration or some kind of thing they were celebrating. And it was really neat because it was my first day there, fighting off jet lag, going to see these 2 museums and then walking past this big museum, the Kelvin Grove, which had the bagpipes out front with some event, and realizing, wow, I feel like I'm being serenaded because now all of a sudden it's bagpipes everywhere. So Glasgow itself is really neat. We stopped by, the next day we stopped by this place called The Raven, and I had fish and chips and some soda and all that. And then we went to the Glasgow Cathedral, which I have a postcard behind me on the wall that my friend sent me, that it was just so cool to be like, oh, now I'm here. And just beautiful stained glass, wonderful things. And St. Mungo is actually buried underneath the Glasgow Cathedral. So I had a good moment with St. Mungo, which was wonderful. There was also this chapel on the side that I went into, and it had a Bible verse that is really near and dear to my heart that has to do with without getting too preachy on everybody's ass, it's the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, and it has to do with running the race with endurance that God puts before you, kind of thing. And I almost started crying in the side chapel because, again, up until the last few months, it's been difficult for me to even function walking for more than 4 to 6 hours a day. So for me to be there and have traveled all that way and not feeling as much pain since my last surgery was amazing. I also noticed they had these little fishies that were kind of worn down. I don't know, maybe people used to rub them. And I rubbed one of the fishies too. I know that's one of the saints' symbols. So just a beautiful cathedral and totally worth visiting. Another free thing to go do. And then another free thing that is in the same square that you can walk right over to is this, it's not an interfaith museum. They had a really cool name for it. It was the St. Mungo Museum of Religious Life and Art, and I highly recommend going to that as well if you're interested in interreligious studies or interfaith, kind of motivated or oriented ideas or organizations. It's really wonderful, and I almost died laughing because I went up to one of the special exhibit floors and it was like a huge thing that says angels, and I'm like, of course the special exhibit is on angels when I visit, of course it is. And I'm not going to get into that, just know that was, my friend and I laughed for a while after that. We went up the hill from there. As you can see, it's near the Glasgow Cathedral is the necropolis. So this is all within walking distance of each other, these three places. And it's like strolling through a park, right? Yeah, it's the city of the dead, so be respectful. It's my preachy, thing, just being like, don't be terrible. Like, it's really beautiful. I didn't take that many photos because I'm a little bit superstitious and also trying to just be respectful, but the trees there were beautiful. The different grave sites were beautiful. I can see why people used to want to picnic in those places. So some other stuff we went to do was we definitely wanted to go to Edinburgh, and my friend had been studying there, like me, like we're both, students, one's working on a dissertation, I'm working on my thesis, right? We're working all the time on research. So they hadn't had a chance to go to Edinburgh, and they're like, let's take the train, because they hadn't taken this train. They've taken the Clockwork Orange, which is the subway around Glasgow, but they hadn't taken the train. So it was an adventure for us both, and in classic, kind of train style, of course our train got canceled and we had to figure out at the train station what to do. And the information desk was very helpful, and they're like, oh no, your ticket should still be honored. So it all went well. And we get to Edinburgh and we're wandering around, and it's just like this really amazing stairway-filled experience. I'm very glad that I have gone through physical therapy as hardcore as I have the last few years, or I would have been totally screwed in Edinburgh. It's very, it would not be good if you had any issues walking, okay, at all. But it's extremely beautiful and picturesque. You can definitely tell, when I got off the train, I'm like, yeah, this is where all the bougie or well-off people lived in Scotland. And that's not meant to be a ding. It's just that you could feel it, right? You can see it in the architecture and the history and everything, and it's very beautiful. So we went to the National Museum of Scotland. They have a lot of awesome exhibits. It's several stories tall. It is wow, wow is all I gotta say. And we also went to St. Giles Cathedral. Both of those things are free to go to. Just know that in St. Giles, you're not allowed to take photos unless you pay a fee up at the front desk, and I didn't because I'm a budget traveler and I wanted to save some of my money, even though it really wasn't that expensive, although the actual price is eluding me at the moment. They also had I don't know, they had so many exhibits in that place, and unfortunately we got hungry enough that we kind of skipped out on some of them, which I regret. But hey, you can't have everything. We walked past the Elephant House where J.K. Rowling wrote, they call it the birthplace of Harry Potter, wrote quite a bit of Harry Potter there, which was neat. And then we went back to, after unsuccessfully going to several restaurants nearby that were full of tourists, we went back to this place I remembered and passed, which was the Cellar Door. And we're so glad we did. It was fantastic. I highly recommend that place. The service was great. The food was excellent. And they have a nice lunch special menu. So it's very, very kind of laid back kind of atmosphere as well, which my friend and I are more introverted. So after being in the throngs of crowds, we appreciated that respite. So again, that was the cellar door. And as you can see, they have a great gin menu. They just have a great menu of everything in general. Uh, we went from there to the Edinburgh Castle, which was one of the most expensive things that we did, but it was worth it. There's the War Museum inside it, and all the royal apartments and all of that, including the Scottish Crown jewels. And it was really a fascinating place to experience and be at, and feel all the history that took place there and learn more about that site. Definitely worth the price, I feel like. Just know that you will be with tons of tourists, okay? It is not, you will be squished like sardines, especially to see probably those crown jewels, okay? That's just how it is. So keeping that in mind, it was a great day. Beautiful views, man, like priceless views from the top of that castle. You can see why it was such a strategic place militarily for so many years. And coming back down and heading back to the train station, I took some more photos. We hung out in front of St. Giles, sitting at a statue for like an hour, just people watching. There was this dude that we dubbed Sad Boy, which they had these bagpipes that trade out during different shifts. And this poor dude, like, when somebody gets off shift and they look like hell and like they want to die or they're going to have an existential crisis, that was Sad Boy, okay? And he was over there and he lit his cigarette, and sat on the bench with his, his bagpipes in the carrying thing he had with him, and he had his kilt on, because of course he's on the job, he's playing bagpipes for tourists, and he's on break and he's smoking, and we watch him off and on along with the rest of the people in the square, and then eventually he disappears and he comes back, and we're not sure, but we're pretty sure he may have gone to have a drink because damn, he looked like he needed it, and he had a little bit of red in his cheeks and looked a little bit less like he totally hated everything when he came back. I've been there. And then he lit up his cigarette again and was hanging out there, and we were hoping it was the end of his shift, but oh no, not for Sad Boy. Sad Boy had to go back on shift. The clock struck its time, and his coworker, his shift ended. He had packed up his bagpipe and was walking off, and then he had to pick up his bagpipe, cross the street, and then we heard Sad Boy start up his sad little bagpipe that powered out amazing tunes after that. And my friend and I were just like, "You can do it, Sad Boy," like quiet, introverted motivation, being like, "We're rooting for you." It's quite impressive that he can play bagpipes for a job when he smokes. That in itself is amazing. So anyway, that was interesting. Along with the seagulls that kept trying to like kill and or mate with each other in that square. It was an interesting hour of people watching. Let me just say that. So we headed back to Glasgow after that, and the countryside is just absolutely stunning. I was so happy I took the time to take some video of it for all of you. My remaining days were really spent going to this place I wanted to see, which I didn't take pictures of the stones because I'm an idiot, but it was the old parish church over in Govan, which was within walking distance again from where my friend lives. It's about 40 or 50 minutes, but we walked. The weather was okay enough. And it's the old parish church there, and they have the Govan stones and are in the middle of fundraising to make it like it's already a nice tourist site, but I think, they're going to be doing it for restoration and improving the site even more. And it is an active church. So just keep that in mind when you go to visit it. And it was amazing. It was really cool. For those that don't know, the Govan stones are, there's like a number of different stones. There's some of them that are Viking related. So they're like upside down longboats that are probably grave markers, right? And then it's also known to be, it's one of the oldest known sites of Christianity in the UK. So that also makes it a very unique site. There were some neat boats that we passed on the way back, and then the next few days we basically spent, hanging out at the University of Glasgow, going to the Hunterian Museum, which was closed that day. So we just kind of killed time until my friend's flatmate was ready to hang out. And we went to the Kelvin Grove, all three of us together, and then went to the, it was Brewdog across the street from the Kelvin Grove. And oh my God, for the first time in my life, I had a cappuccino, forgot to order it with non-dairy milk, and I didn't die. I didn't vomit. I didn't have any lactose intolerant problems at all. I was completely stunned. And my friend's flatmate, bless her heart, is from the Midwest. Okay, so it was like us three Americans hanging out in this pub. And she was like, well, they have higher fat content in their milk. And that may or may not have made a difference. I don't know. But that cappuccino was so delicious at that place. I can't believe I was able to drink a beverage with milk and not die. Normally, when I've had any milk in my coffee at all here in the States, I immediately want to vomit, or I will vomit. And somehow, I don't know what the difference is with their milk, that didn't happen there. So I'm not saying that if you have a dairy allergy that you should do what I did. Not at all, okay? I'm just saying that's the way it worked out for me. So the remainder of my stay, the last day I was there, we were finally able to go to the Hunterian Museum. And oh, by the way, the Kelvin Grove has Dali in it, which was really cool. Anyway, I had to stare at it for like quite a while. It was neat. Anywho, when we went to Hunterian, they had also good exhibits, ones that were Roman, ones that were very scientific, especially related to Kelvin, because Kelvin is a University of Glasgow alum. And we went to Mackintosh House, which is an Art Nouveau era architect and an artist and his wife, and their house near the Hunterian Art Gallery. And it was wonderful. You're not allowed to take photos inside, sadly, and it is a separate fee, but other than that, the Kelvin Grove, Hunterian, and the Hunterian Gallery are all free. It's the Mackintosh House you have to pay a few pounds to get into, but it's very reasonable. So that was beautiful, and it was perfect because that morning we went to Mackintosh House, and then that afternoon, because we had reserved it a week ahead of time, we went to the newly opened and renovated the Mackintosh at the Willow Tea Room on Sauchiehall Street. And wow, just wow. We had told them a week ago when we made the reservation that my friend has a nut allergy and that I'm lactose intolerant. And they had made note of that and mentioned it before they seated us and that they'd take care of us. And it was fantastic service, just amazing. Obviously, it goes without saying, but like amazing tea and fantastic pastries and finger sandwiches. We ended up doing afternoon tea instead of 11sies or individual meals. And it was so much fun, and it was so relaxing, and they didn't rush us out of there at all. We made a reservation for 2 p.m. in case that helps any of you. And to be quite frank, I was expecting the bill to be more than it was. So know that it even for me being a budget traveler and that being my big splurge, it was still pretty reasonable. So that was really nice. On the way back, I got to take photos of Greenland, which was really cool. Unfortunately, I had 2 shuffles with my seat because both times they wouldn't let me choose my seat ahead of time, and my stupid ass didn't let them know that I was disabled and couldn't do the emergency exit thing. And guess who got seated 2 out of 3 times on their return flight in the emergency row? Me. So I'm never doing that again. I'm going to have to call all the airlines ahead of time and be like, okay, look, I can't do this. Do not put me in this aisle if I'm not able to choose my seat. And even then I need to just tell them. So that was a time and a half. And when I got to SeaTac, they were like, "Yeah, so you just went through customs for the first time. Congratulations." Well, it was the second time, but the first time for me in coming back to the United States. And they're like, "But we're not allowing you through this to get to your all the other gates. We have security concerns, so we're just going to tell you to go all the way back around, take the tram, and then have to go and enter through TSA again, and then find your gate." And I was like, "Your terminal and your gate." And I was like, "Why, God, why?" Because it was like my last flight between Icelandair, so like from SeaTac, right, to Las Vegas, and I'm freaking exhausted. And then I get there and my boarding pass doesn't work because my airplane mode had been on, and they had the same issue with the emergency exit on this flight. And then the lovely people at Alaska got me on that flight anyway, instead of making me wait until 10:22 at night in Seattle. So that was great. I ended up being on the original flight I was supposed to be on, even though they downgraded my thing from premium to economy. Literally the only time I had premium that whole time, to and from, because I figured I might be in pain by then. Luckily, I wasn't in as much pain as I thought I would be, but it was still disappointing. Again, Alaska took care of me though, so that was good. It was an amazing journey, coming home, getting to see my bejeweled city of Las Vegas and all the exciting tourists who were on the plane with me. So that was cool. But yeah, overall, it was a really, really great trip. I am so happy that I did that, and that my first time out of the United States was to go see a friend who had been living there for about a year and a half, right? So that was cool. Hopefully in the future, I'll get a chance to go and travel internationally again, and it may also be to go see another friend. I actually have I know like three people in Japan, maybe eventually. Eventually it will be three, but two people that I'm especially close with. So hopefully I will get to go visit them if one of them is like studying abroad, and she was like, "When that happens, you are coming to visit me. I will make a way." And I'm like, "Okay, well, hopefully by then people won't have to help me afford it so much." This was really like a early slash belated undergraduate gift from my family, and a early gift for my graduation, for my MA, my master's degree, from my family. And then I had help from friends. Like I said, I was staying at my friend's flat, and they were very kind. And hopefully I will get to return the favor in the future here pretty soon. So right now I'm still a little bit from jet lag, but almost recovered, and it was just a wonderful trip. Hopefully this will give you an idea of maybe something you would like to do if you have been like, well, maybe you're like me and you never thought of going to, or haven't been able to go internationally. And it was really neat. I loved the fact that so many of the things that I did were free. It almost was like being in a country where maybe they want people to learn about things, because the museums were free pretty much, aside from the Edinburgh Castle, which is understandable, I guess. And then their public transit was fairly reasonable as well, and that includes the train ride. I think the most expensive items were pretty much the train ride, the Edinburgh Castle admission, excuse me, and of course, when we were eating out, although a lot of the time I had help with that, except like twice. And we also, I would come back to my friend's flat every day, and they were like, "I'm fixing dinner." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, it was really fun. So that's where I've been. Sorry for the absence. I will be setting up my Patreon and making it go live soon. This is Eclectic Entries, and for right now, I am signing out. I hope to be updating again soon. I will be traveling around the Southwest, because this is probably one of my last times to do that before I get my MA, and I'm like working and working and working again, right? In a different way than being a student. So until next time, take care of yourself as you're able. Bye.